All right, welcome everybody. Um, I just want to take a moment and say thank you to everyone who's taken the pattern making camp today, and also um, let you know that um, everybody has been really doing really great with the questions, and to remind you that uh, no question is a crazy question, okay? The more questions you ask, the better. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. I want to make a reference video for the class for drafting the front and back bodice. So we, as we discussed, we need to make sure that we have taken our numbers, our measurements, and that we have first done the math, which is basically to just take our measurements and divide them up where it would be easiest for us to first take them and then to uh, divide them like we have to. The measurements that need to be divided by 4, because we're only drafting for 1/4 of the body, that's one half of the front and half of the back. Um, that would be the neck, the chest, the bust, the waist, and the hip. And then we have measurements that are divided by 2, such as the shoulder width and the armhole, um, and also our bust span. So let's go ahead and get started. If you should have any questions while you're watching the video, just take note of those and be sure to bring those to class. All right, as you can see, I have my basic tools here. I have my measurements, and for me, the math is already done here. These measurements are from a size 8, and I have my curved ruler, my 2x18 ruler, and my square, my pencils, and of course my plain white craft paper. You can use whatever paper you choose as long as it's strong enough for you to be able to um, manipulate and use for use more than one time. So let's get started. As usual, the first thing we're going to do is draw ourselves a guideline, and that's where our square comes in handy, is to make sure we draw ourselves a nice guideline so we can make sure that we have our pattern nice and straight. Now, the first measurement that we first thing we mark is going to be our center front, but it's going to be our full length that we record. So this is the center front of our front bodice. This is the center front. This line represents the center front. Okay, the line that I'm going to draw across here from the center front is the top or the shoulder. Okay, the line that is here represents the first, this is the neckline, and then this is the shoulder. So I'm just going to write shoulder here. Okay, and then for the next thing we're going to do is go ahead and mark our center front, our full length, I'm sorry. So our guideline was just our center front and then our shoulder. We haven't measured anything yet. Right now we're going to start putting in our measurements. Measurements for our full length would be 17. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to get right on my line here and make sure from point A to point B here is 17. And that is my full length. Once I have that, I'm just going to square a line straight across from that point, just to be sure that it's nice and straight. And this will be where my waist will be. Just write that there. Okay. The next thing I want to do is come up here, and from the top I want to from the bottom I want to measure up my center front length. Remember, that's the measurement taken right up underneath your chin uh, in that little dip there, all the way down to your waist. And the full length is from where your shoulder and your neck meet down to your waist. So your full length is longer than your center front length. So we have your center front length, which is A to B. All right, so C to B to C is going to be your center front length. And in that case here, our center front length is going to be 15. Okay. Oh, looks okay, 15 and a half. Okay, here we go. 15 and a half. So I'll just put a little mark there, and we'll call this C if that helps. So A to B is your full length. C to B is going to be your center front length. So we'll put CFL here, and down here we will put FL for full length. All right. And then the next thing I'm going to do is mark a point which will be your bust depth. What that means is from your shoulders down to where your bust line would be, from your shoulder down to where your bust point would be. On the average person, woman, that would be between 10 and 11. Again, we're working with a dress form in a size 8, and so it's a little bit different, and it's going to be about the half here, about 8 and a half. All right, this is going to be our bust line. Okay, so I'll come here and square a line straight across and write bust line there. Okay. Okay, and then after we mark our bust line here, then we can come up here and we can mark half of our shoulder width, half of your shoulder width. Okay, our shoulder width was 14. Half of the shoulder width would be 7. We're going to add a ½ inch ease to that. All right, that would be 7 and a half. Okay, 7 and a half. Okay, and I'll put SW for shoulder width there. We're also going to mark our shoulder slope, which we discovered was about 1 inch, anywhere from a ½ inch to 1 inch for if this were an actual person. On a dress form, it's a slight, like a ½ inch here. We're going to just go ahead and use what we have for the dress form and put a ½ inch there. Now, I'll put a little SL there so we'll know that's the slope. When we actually take this measurement from the center front, where your belly button would be up to your shoulder, we would actually come up with what would also be your shoulder slope. But if you can see here, when we looked at our dress form, we could tell that it was about 1 inch between where the neck was and where the shoulder actually sloped down. All right, so just so we can go ahead and draw in our neckline, let's take a look here. Our neck was 14 divided by 3. It was 3 and a half. So we're going to come here and we're going to come over 3 and a half inches. And that neckline was a little bit wide, so we're just going to do 3 since this is not an actual person. So this is going to be a neck. All right. And now I'm going to mark half of the armhole. Half of the armhole. The armhole around the full armhole around was 14, so that would be 7. We're going to do 7 and a half because we want to leave some ease for moving around. So 7 and a half. Remember that 7 and a half now is going to be from our new shoulder tip. So why don't we go ahead and make sure this line is straight though. And come down to 7 and a half. Okay. And that's our armhole. We can go ahead and connect our shoulder tip now to our neckline, and that would be our shoulder. That's our shoulder length. Okay. All right. We also could go ahead and take our ruler, curved ruler, and draw in our neckline. We're just making sure this curve, the 2 points touch one another. We can move the ruler around a little bit until we have a nice curve there. All right. And now we've got our armhole here. And remember underneath that armhole, if we take the ruler, the tape measure, and go around the body, that would give you the measurement that is right above your bust, which would be your chest measurement. And we're just going to square a line across to represent our chest measurement. Okay, our chest measurement was 30, let me make sure, 33, and so we ended up with 33 and a half, so 8 3/4. So let's take this over, 8, okay, and then we have 1, 2 3/4, and so we'll mark it here. All right, and then we'll go ahead and finish putting in our measurements that we divided by 4. So this would be our chest line, and we would take our bust line divided by 4 would be also the same. This is not odd for it to be the same. If you look at your body, usually that's the way it is. This line is not straight as it should be here either. Let's see. And our bust, we're going to add a 1/2 inch ease to it, of course. So we have to move around a little bit. And then we'll come down here to our waist. Now, there's we've already done our dart work here. We know that there is an 8-inch difference, so we know our darts are going to be at least 1 inch, and we are going to normally have a bust dart and a waist dart, but since we know that our waist dart is going to be 1 inch and our bust dart is going to be 1 inch, we're going to go ahead and combine those darts and then and make that one dart, which means we would end up putting the bust dart and the waist dart together. And since they both would be 1 inch separately, we're going to have 1 2-inch dart here at the waist, and that would give us a waistline that was 26 divided by 4 would be 6 1/2, 7 1/2, 8 1/2 if we add 2 inches to it. So we're going to have an 8 1/2 here is where we're going to mark. And then we can go ahead and connect these points, and we'll have our side seam in here. And we can go ahead after we're done and shape this up nice and so that it has a nice realistic curve in it, like our bodies are really made. The next thing we're going to do is mark our bust span on our bust line. Remember, the bust span is the point from bust point to bust point. On the average woman, it's between 8 and 9 inches. On our bust form, it was 7, so we're at 3 1/2. And we'll just mark this here with a little circle here and put BP for bust point. This also will serve as the center of our dart. So remember, a dart has the 3 legs. This is our center leg, and this will help us be able to make sure we have a nice straight leg for our dart. So this is the dart here. Okay. We also know that our bust radius for a B cup, and we are dealing with a B cup here, would be 1 inch, which means that the radius around the bust point is 1 inch. Okay, and so we'll mark 1 inch from the bust point, and then we'll go down here and go ahead and finish our dart. We'll go ahead and put, it's a 2-inch dart, so that means it's 1 inch on each side, right? So 1 inch on this side, 1 inch on this side. And go ahead and we can connect our dart leg here. Okay, so now we've got our waist dart in here. Let's come up and do our armhole. Here for our armhole, we need to find a midpoint, and the reason we're doing this part here is because there's a difference between the front armhole and the back armhole, because in the front of our bodies we have a bust. If you're a woman, you have a bust, and that means there's a difference between your front and your back. You need more room in your front armhole to accommodate for the curve. So we have to find a midpoint. We've already divided our armhole in half, so we have our front armhole here, and we got to find a halfway point here. When we divided our armhole in half, it was 7. We added half-inch ease, so 7 and then a half-inch would have made it 4. So we're going to put this here, and we have to go in the standard amount, which would be 3/4 of an inch. So we'd come here, okay, and then we'd have 1, 2, and 3. And once we have that marked, our little guideline, 3/4 of an inch here, then we can go ahead and take our curved ruler and draw in our armhole. When you draw in your armhole, just make sure that you're touching your new shoulder tip there, and also touching the point where that you marked in first. It'll be easier to do this in 2 steps than to try to do it in one big swoop. So you do it here, and then you take your ruler up and just make sure that you move it around until it makes sense. Now you don't want to get in too deep, and you don't want to be out too far, because you have to be touching this point. When I suggest that if you have any you're nervous about it, it's just you make yourself a little guideline here, okay, and just make sure that you have it so that you don't go in too deep. I can just about eye it, but if you can't for some reason, you think that you're not going to be able to do it, you can also do this by hand. Remember, these rulers are not meant that it's going to help you to draw it perfectly, but what you want to do is make sure that you can that you don't go in too deep. So just take this, make sure you have this, you're always touching this point, okay, and you can go ahead and draw in your circle. You can go ahead and draw in your armhole, and you can go in and work with it and make it as nice as you want it to be. Probably should go in a little bit more. Okay, so now you have your armhole in there, you have your dart here. This is your basic front. This is your shoulder here, your neckline here. And so now that's the front. Let's go ahead and write front on here. That's a basic, quick way to do it. You want to do the back now, right? So for the back, you're going to some things you're going to transfer over. Okay, you're going to keep the same. You don't have a bust in the front, so you already know you don't have to worry about that. The only thing that you have to really do is make sure that you take care of the difference in the armhole. Okay, so here I'm going to transfer the waist. Okay, and I'm going to transfer the side seam all the way up to the armhole, and then I'm going to transfer the dart. Now the dart in the back here is not going to be a 2-inch dart, because we would not have a bust dart back here, so it only needs to be a 1-inch dart. Okay, and so I'm going to transfer now, instead of it being, this is going to be the back line. It's not going to be a bust line. That's the back line. Transfer. This is my center back here. I'm going to go ahead and put in my 1-inch dart. Okay. All right, now we're going to go ahead. Make sure you guys can see this part here. And I'm going to continue, finish with my center back line using my measurements for my center back. Okay. Because my center back is length is going to be different from the front. My center back is 16. So I'm going to come here. Notice the difference between that and the front. Okay. And then the neckline, I can see this through here, so that's my back neckline there. And then my shoulder, I can transfer that. Okay. And now I can see my armhole here. Now this is where, remember we curved it in the front. We don't have to do that here, but we still have to make sure that we take care of the dart here, because we will have a slight dart here in the shoulder, and here's why. Because just like we took that dart intake from the bust and we moved it and combined it there, and the reason that we want to have that bust dart, the amount there, is so that we can use it for fit and design. Remember, a dart's first job is for what? Fit. So we want to divide the shoulder in half, the shoulder amount in half. Come here and divide this in half. What I'm doing now is not so I can make this wider like we did in the front, but there is a measurement across the and then I'm going to from that halfway point here at the shoulder, that's go. Now here I'm just putting my dart here so that we can make sure that our armholes match up to what they need to be. And so here we're going to have a really small dart, a 1/2 inch, so it could be 1/4 of an inch. It can be really small, because all we're doing again is trying to make sure that we can match up those armholes. Okay. All right, so this could be moved here, it could be moved in the armhole, it could be distributed any way we need it to be. Now remember, since we don't have to go in here, we can just touch the shoulder tip here and go ahead and put in our draw in our armhole. All we got to do is make sure that we meet here and come on up here. We really have it done. Okay, and then we have our back pattern done here. All right, this is the back. Now we have not put the information that would normally go on the pattern here. I just wanted to show you guys quickly a quick way to do the front and the back. So on my next video, I'm going to show you a not so quick way, a more detailed, I'll say, way to do it. This is a quick way to take measurements and do a front and back bodice, just so you can see how it works. All right. When I do the next video, I'm going to draft the back first, and it's going to be a little bit more detailed. I am going to include the bust dart. We're going to get into how we come up with custom dart measurements, but the basics of it, the measurements that you need, you're still going to need those same measurements, okay? I think that you will see the drafts done a lot of different ways, but I think that knowing the basics, just if you keep practicing the basics over and over again so that you can picture what you're doing, not so much the lines, but what part of the body that you're actually representing with the lines that you make, that you will you'll learn this pretty quickly. Okay. All right, I'll see you with the next video, where I will be doing the front and back bodice, but I will be doing a more detailed step-by-step way to do it. If you have any questions, you know you can always give me a call or send me an email, and I will be glad to help you. Have a great rest of your weekend, everybody. Stay warm, stay safe. Take care.